It feels like so long since I made a YouTube video, and it's for many reasons. Lack of motivation because the channel got deleted, part of just being busy on projects, and then partly because I haven't released that much music and I like to tend to break down tracks that I've released. I've got a track with my mate Connor, that's Connor Ross, coming soon because we've just found a label for it, and it's genuinely one of the tracks that I've made that I love the most, so I'm really excited to put that one out. This track is overproduced like crazy, so you should be able to learn something from it as a producer, but I would usually emphasize try not to overproduce your stuff. So you'll see that the project's super messy. That's because 1, there's so much going on, 2, I'm messy myself. I've tried to organize it to the best of my ability. You can actually buy this project from my website in the description. It would be super nice if you went to pick that up. Also, you should learn a lot extra from going into that project, having a hands-on approach inside it. So let's go into the project. And as I said earlier, if you want to learn a little bit more from the project itself and have it on your computer, you can download it on my website, which I'll link in the description. So let's go. Okay, inside the project we are, and as I scroll down, you can see kind of what's going on here. A lot of automation, a lot of stemming things out because of CPU problems before I got my new computer, and a lot of bits and pieces, as I've called them, on the side here. I don't know where to start, but probably I'm going to start with the thought behind the verses or the breakdowns, whatever you want to call them. The vocal, obviously this being a remix, I've taken that out because it's not part of the song. That's muted for now. But if you know the song, you know what the vocal is. Anyway, let's go. So I've started the song with a bunch of effects, layering up a bunch of different effects that are like radio glitches, like this one, and this one, and then this drone sound, and then going into like a reverse vocal, which is just tremolating like that. Very simple stuff. And then we've got this little melody pluck thing, which is just taken from the start of this sample here. Kind of like a hip hop sample. I don't know why, but it turned it into like a little pluck. That's it. So then we add the piano, and this is my favorite part of the song. Quite a simple piano. It's Addictive Keys, which is a piano VST. Contact is good as well. I would have used Contact if I didn't have Addictive Keys. So these are the chords. Let's just hear them by themselves. So actually quite jazzy chords, especially the bit at the end here that does a major to a minor. Taking some jazz influences here. The first phrase ends like this. The second phrase ends like this. So all that's changed here is this chord has become a minor because I've taken the G from a G sharp, which is what it usually is to make it a major chord. I've taken it and made it a minor. After I got the piano down, I added some pads here, so I'll let you hear the pads by themselves. And then over the piano, we added a little bit of tape noise, which is just a hissing sound. Very quiet. I'll turn it up. Just to make it sound like it was in almost like a room recording, an imperfect recording. Other than that, that's it. And then we go on to the build-up, which gets a little bit more layers. So let's look into that. I really wanted to make this part just really overproduced. I'm not going to lie. So we started with the main chords, which was the bass. So let's get this here. And this melody that builds up. So I'll let you hear them together. But of course, I couldn't stop there. I needed to add some strings. The strings have been stemmed out for CPU issues, but as you can hear, they add quite a lot of tension to this part of the song. And then if I take away everything else and show you the other layers that are going on, mainly atmospheres and drums. So let's highlight all of these, turn them on so you can hear the extra little layers. And then it all cuts out. So together as one. Using bars of silence or adding a lot of space in a track is something that I find a lot of amateur producers don't do. A lot of the stuff becomes very paddy and constant and legato. If you try and add some space to your productions, it can make a world of difference. And that's what I did here. Everything cuts out just towards the end. Okay, so now we've got the drop part, and this is where I just went full on overproduction. So we're going to start with the drums and just work our way down this mess that we have here. I'll explain everything along the way. First up, we've got our kick layers. There are 4 layers to the kick. I did say it was overproduced. You don't need to do this. If you find the right sample, just use one. I just couldn't find the right sample, so I layered it. We've got the kick 1. Really aggressive. Kick 2. Top kick. Kick 3. Another top kick. And kick 4. A lot of bass and mid boom there as well. Together as one. So pretty aggressive sample there. Next up, we've got a little noise stab that goes over the top of the kick. A little bit more impact. And if you thought that 4 kicks was too much, we have got, I think, 7 snares, which is over the top, I know, but I couldn't get the sound I wanted, so I just kept layering. Let's listen to each snare layer individually, and then we can listen to them as a whole. First snare, super low, probably irrelevant, I'm not gonna lie. Second, more of a pluck, gives it a bit more pitch. Third one, that's not a snare. I've marked it as a snare because it was part of the snare layer, but it's actually a hi-hat to give it more noise on the top. What's this one? Really dry rim shot, so that's when you hit the side of a snare. This is a classic hip-hop snare with a reverse sound in here too. Now we've got the main snare sample. Really aggressive sound. And we've got the last snare here, which has got a really specific pitch. So I've actually pitched this one down slightly to match the key of the song. So together as one, we have this. And if we zoom in, this is important. Look how some of the transients of the snares are offset from one another and how actually some of them don't have as much transient. This is really important because if you put them all together, what it will do is it will just stack up the transients and make a large peak, and it'll be difficult on your master and it won't punch through as much. So see how it almost disappears? The transient goes, even though I'm adding more volume of a transient. Here's the first snare now that I've edited it. Here's the snare, how it is in the track. See, the transient just disappears, even though the transient should be louder. So there's a really good tip. Offsetting your drums and offsetting your transients to make things punch through a little bit. Processing wise, nothing, as you can see, is going on at the individual layers of the snare. The only thing that's really happening on the bus is an EQ to boost the highs and to cut some harsh frequencies. Really nothing is going on there. You'll notice this with all my productions. It's barely about the processing. It's mainly about the sample choice and layering. After I got that, I added the bass. So I'm going to let you hear that. Now, all of these chords are stacked up in that pattern, and that's because I've exported them. But if we look at the pattern, these are actually all muted because they've been exported to a stem down here. That's because of CPU problems. But anyway, I'll let you hear the sounds unmuted because I've got a good CPU now. I can run this. So this is what the pattern sounds like. All right, so Lots going on there, and lots of layering going on. Lots of Serum. That's my favorite synthesizer when I'm sound designing and not using samples. So let's basically just take each layer by itself. So we've got the first bass. It's just an aggressive thing. We've got an 808. Very simple. And the processing for those is a Camel Crusher. And the other one has got an EQ. Taking off some of the highs, actually, because it was too much. Next up, we have the chord layers. So here's the first one. So that's the first chord only. And it's a preset that I've made myself. It's a bit of a weird one. Processing for that one was some compression and an EQ. Second chord layer. It's just actually some sine waves. Another preset I've made myself, and the LFO is just moving this and attached to the level there. Literally a sine wave with some voices on it. Third layer. This is a more of a classic soul kind of sound. The effects section's doing some work with distortion and dimension. Processing wise, an EQ, boosting the highs quite a lot. Fourth layer now. You'll notice that one's panning left and right. That was just to give it some width and, again, to overproduce it. Not gonna lie, I just threw that in there. Another layer that we made for the project. It's just a wavetable with a bunch of detune and one of the noise samples on the top. Without noise, it sounds quite boring. The processing for that is an EQ. And of course, the panning automation. We can watch there. And then the final layer for the chords is this one. So this one is just really, really detuned. That's it. It just sounds really bad by itself, but in the context of the track, brings a little bit extra depth to the sound itself. So there we go. EQing, again, fairly simple. The last little bit is this bass that goes down. Very simplistic. It's a sine wave with a bit of noise. Without the noise, it's like this. With the noise. And that is being processed with an EQ. Imagine that, like just like everything else in this project. So every one of those layers, the basses and the chords are going to a bus. That's the sidechain sound, and on there is a bunch of filters, so we can do this to everything. We've got a balance to the sidechain, a limiter for sidechain compression. Very, very big dip in sidechain there. If I take that off, you can hear it makes it very flat sounding. And then we've got an EQ as well, boosting some of the highs and cutting some of the lows. That's it. All right, next up, we add some extra layers to the chords that I couldn't create in synths. So we've got this first one, and they're being automated to be the same kind of rhythm as the chords themselves. Very quiet. I'll turn that up a bit so you can hear it. It's off. So that's the first layer. These are not as important as the chords themselves. And then here's the second one. So these are actually constant notes. And they just add an extra bit of depth to the sound itself together. And then with the chords. That's it. All right, next up, I want to show you all the what I've called bits and pieces. These are just samples and things that have been lying around in my sample library for many months now that I've not been able to apply to many other types of music. So this is just me kind of having a bit of fun. That's about it. So hopefully you can hear that. We've got 19 lines of chaotically pieced together bits and pieces. So with the drums, they sound like this. Let's go from here. So as you can hear, a lot of stuff going on. I'm not really going to break down the individual samples because they're just sounds. They're just sounds that I liked, pieced together. But I really like the sound of this bit. And the main part of that is just this massive bass shot. It's not even going to a mixer. That's how little the processing is. So all of these are just noises, glitches. These are just a little industrial chop. And this is from this sample I got from Splice. That it just sounds like this. Just keeps going. Don't know why I downloaded this, but I found it in my library and I threw it in, chopped it up, and we managed to get that cool sound. It's again used here. And here. Really not a nice sample by itself, but again, in the context of everything, it sounds good. We also have this noise. Lots of industrial drums. So yeah, a lot of distortion and nothing being processed. Genuinely, like there's no crazy processing on any of these samples. It's just finding the right sound. I'm going to keep saying that because I think it's so important. Next up, we have this kind of counter melody. So that's a counter melody to the main chords. So this is made with a pluck sound, just to give it a little bit of transient. And then the main sound, believe it or not, is me recording the notes into a piano and running them through a guitar amp. So it sounds like a guitar, but it's a piano. Same with this one down here. It's actually just me playing the notes, bum, 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 into a piano. Then we have a little vocal chop as well. We also have this layer, which is quite interesting, and this is a volume automation. So kind of irrelevant, but it just adds a little bit of panning. And then on the second half of the drop, we have the extra percussive things that keep the energy going. So I'll let you hear them together. Pretty simplistic. Each layer is got its place, so let's go for the first one. This is a vocal loop I found on Splice. Really atmospheric. I love it. You can hear the reverb was pre-applied to the sample, and of course I used a lot of space just in this bit here, so that was nice and easy. Next up, we've got a loop of a clock. Kind of Z sounding. We've got this constant atmosphere sound. the hi-hats. And then we've got a percussion layer over the top of that. These down here are the stems of the chords exported. And then these are the pitching ones. So these are the final ones I used in the song, but I wanted to show you the individual presets, and I'm just going to go ahead and mute them back so we can hear the final project. Now we're into the second verse. The only thing I really changed was I took the piano chords away and just added the bass line. And that's a respace and serum. Very simple sound to make. Some drums. Lo-fi drums. And then I added this piano loop from Splice. I use this so much. I use this one so much because it's like kind of creepy sounding. It reminds me of like Call of Duty Zombies or something. Don't know. You can hear why. Percussive loop. And then we're into the second build. And the only real difference from this one to the other one is the addition of a cello doing some arpeggios, and they're just sounding like this. Add a little bit extra energy to the final build-up. And this stem is, of course, exported out for CPU issues. Then we go into the final drop, which has been stripped of almost all of its drums from the start. And as we showed before, the bus of the synths are now being filtered down. Then we have this crazy effect that hasn't been used in the first drop, but it's like this horrible scream. Doesn't sound good, but it works really nicely here. So I just chopped it up to make it like this. Really aggressive. And of course that bass comes back again. The final part is the outro, and for this part I thought I'd come so far, I might as well top it off with just that little extra bit of overproduction. This is clearly that. It's almost a joke, I'm not gonna lie, the fact that it ends so jazzy. There's your MIDI if you want to steal it. And that's all that's going on. There is a vinyl effect. And then the strings from the build-up that slowly fade out. And then this random vocal sound. I don't know what this is. Okay, it's like a cymbal. And that is genuinely all there is to show. And that's the project. We've got the vocal that I'm not going to show you because of copyright reasons, and that won't be included in the project clearly. And if you download the project, you can also see what's on my master chain, because that's how I tend to mix most of my music. So a little secret for you if you choose to download it. Thank you for watching the video, and hopefully I'll be making some more following some new releases this year. Some really exciting stuff has just started happening, and I can't thank you guys enough for sticking around for the channel version 2 since the first one got deleted. So thank you, and I'll see you soon.